Hey, everybody, and welcome once again to the Fart Fetish Podcast. That podcast where we seek to find the answers to the what, where, how, and sometimes why of fart fetish, and try to help give a nuanced picture of the people that have fetishes. Watch for new episodes every first Friday of the month on fartfetishpodcast.com, as well as most major podcast platforms. You can support me and the show by checking out the ad supported erotic fart content on thefartcloset.com. And now I'd like to introduce Dominic to the podcast. Dominic has just started a new fart fetish podcast called Let's Talk Eproctophilia. So we talk a bit about that. And we also talk to him about the fart fetish origins for himself, the empowerment of embracing his sexuality, the early days of watching fart YouTubes on the family computer, and about his fairly new explorations in the fart fetish community. It's a delightful episode, so let's get right into the Fart Fetish Podcast. Thanks very much for being here, Dominic. Why don't we start with a little bit about yourself and what this fetish and sexuality looks like for you?
Yeah, so I'm Dominic. I'm based here in the UK, and I've been involved in the community probably for 5 years, but I've had the fetish since um, I'd probably say about 2010, I would say. So probably quite early on. I mean, I'd only been about 10 at the time, so I was probably quite young to kind of get involved with it. So probably back then it didn't mean a lot to me, but certainly in the last 5 years, it's grown into something quite meaningful. I don't know. It's a bit of a part of my life that no one knows about other than those that are in the community. If that makes sense. So it's kind of that secret part of my life that I suppose when life gets a bit tough, which when you're an adult and there's bills to pay, it can do at times. It's an escapism in a way. Weirdly, I don't know.
Absolutely, I definitely get that. When you said it has become bigger in the last few years. Do you mean that for yourself or for the community, for both?
I'd say because I think the community was sort of been going for years. So I can't really say a lot about because I'd have been a little kid at the time when it started to become a thing. So I'd say personally, it's probably become bigger for myself in the last 5 years. And a lot of that was due to COVID. When you had nothing to do in lockdown, and it was a way of exploring myself a bit more. And there's funny stuff to do on Twitter, just stumbling across things. So I would say, yeah, I'd say the past 5 years have become bigger in my personal way, but actually, I would say the community's grown a lot in the last 5 years. I've discussed this. There's so many new people coming into it, and not just being there, but being really visible and open, and it's kind of strengthened us in a way, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, we'll get to obviously your podcast that you started, but I also saw one of the content creators started a fart fetish podcast. So the visibility, even if these are like content based things, because you could argue Amy Farts has a podcast on farts as well. So the visibility, anyways, regardless, is growing quite interestingly into or trying to bleed into that mainstream area, which is cool, which is nice to see. Um, do you know when and how the fetish originated for you?
I don't want to say an exact date,
Sure, sure,
because I
sure.
can't really. I'd probably say around about 2009, but a lot of that was stumbling. At the time, I didn't have my own computer or anything, and I was on the family computer, and I was stumbling through sort of videos on YouTube, and I found a lot of the ones where it was sort of like fake farting. Like it would be actual people, it wasn't animated or anything, but they'd be adding in sound effects, and you could clearly tell it was sound effects. And then I'd be watching those videos, and then I'd have to quickly shut the screen down because my parents would walk in. And then it kind of from that went into actually watching. Oh yeah, I remember watching that Scooby Doo movie, and weirdly showing an interest in that scene with Scooby and Shaggy, the sort of farting burping contest thing, but not at the time realizing why I show an interest into it. I kept wanting to watch that scene, and then it grew into sort of wanting to hear friends fart in a way, and then I think like neighbours and things like that. Like I used to live next door to this young lad who's about the same age as me, and suddenly I wanted to hear him fart, and I don't really know why. But at the time, it was sort of it was sort of like an interest. But once it was a fetish, and then when I went to school in 2010, you're suddenly in an environment where, you're around a load of teenage boys and they fart for fun and all that lot, because it's that laddie thing, typical teenage boy thing to do around each other. And it's kind of grown from there. But actually, I suppose really the last 5 years is when it's become a fetish. It started off more of an interest. And then when I stumbled across all the social media stuff and the Telegram chats and Kick chats, that's when it started to become a fetish, I would say.
For sure. And that was unless I misunderstood, it sounds like you had maybe a second awakening, like during COVID, during that explorative time. Is that
Definitely. Yeah.
right? Okay.
Mm.
So that was when it
Yeah.
kind of like really hammered home the kind of vague interest that was starting around 2009, 2010 for you.
Yeah, I think back then, because bearing in mind, back then I wouldn't have been a teenager. So the thought of it being a fetish at the age of 10 wouldn't be unthinkable. I think, it's weird in this fetish. I'm very, because I'm 24, I'm very, well, 25 this, so I'm very strict on age gaps. Like I don't go anyone younger than 18 because it's not right in my book. And even when I was younger, I wouldn't like the thought of it being a fetish back at the age of 9 would be unthinkable.
Of course. Well, and I think too, I think we don't, I think it maybe speaks to the level of sex education in maybe
Yeah.
not only the US but the UK, maybe around the world, that we don't really get into these type of topics in a way that can give us an understanding. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. Obviously the right side in America is arguing that it is a bad thing. I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. But the point is, I do agree that as a child, really before you start exploring the online world, before you can put the word fetish to it, it's just like, I masturbate to farts. It doesn't seem like a weird thing. I mean, obviously it's a weird thing, but it doesn't seem like it's that it doesn't seem like it has a name. It doesn't seem like it has a categorization. I think as you're younger, and then as you obviously get older, you learn more, you get exposed to more people, more things, more facts. You start to realize it's like, oh wait, I do have a fetish, and I think there's a difference too between like a kink for farts, like I like farts in the bedroom, but I like all these other things, or like a fetish, in my estimation, would be like I need farts in the bedroom, or I need domination, I need this aspect in order to climax, in order to accomplish my sexual completion, as it were. um do you remember any other videos you were watching from that early time around I guess 2010, other than like the Scooby-Doo clip?
I can't really remember. I think a lot of the videos I've watched back then aren't in circulation anymore. I think they're ones that have, and they weren't necessarily people that had a fetish. They weren't like content creators. It may have been a video on YouTube of, I remember this video on YouTube of, I think there were some two friends having some kind of sleepover and they were farting on each other and that. I remember that video, but I think it's kind of either been taken down or disappeared into the YouTube world somewhere. Um, but I can't, and then I kind of remember stumbling across that guy called Tyler, who's still active now, and watching a lot of his content on YouTube. But I can't really remember specific videos other than that one video I just mentioned that's disappeared somewhere.
For sure. For sure. No, that makes sense. What, like, thinking about content now, or whether it be content or play or what have you, what aspects and themes do you typically like gravitate towards when you think about this fetish, as in like dominating, submissive, any of those type of ideas?
Really, the domination side of it's not kind of a thing for me. I mean, I like meeting up with someone on a casual basis, and then one of us needs to fart going about it that way. I'm not the biggest fan of the whole being dominated. I don't know, that's because I'm quite a young, quite a slim person. I don't know whether, or quite a young, timid person in a way, quite shy. The thought of being dominated doesn't really, not frightens me, but it kind of scares me. And well, yeah, weirdly puts me off in a way. I don't know. I like the casual side of it.
That makes a lot of sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, and this is not me telling you, but like I find myself quite shy and introverted as well, but I am definitely heavy into the domination. So I do think it takes all kinds, or there's no like stereotype of a person who enjoys domination. I don't think,
Oh, no,
anyways.
definitely, yeah. Mm.
Um, it's kind of a similar question, but is there like a genre of fart video you would watch? It would be like, if I had to estimate, then like something like uh boy next door, just like kind of just hanging out type content. Is that the case?
Yeah, I would say so. I like the whole. I'm quite a big thing on like the whole on command stuff is not really a thing for me. So any kind of farting on command videos I tend to steer away from. I like the ones where it's just someone, maybe their jeans sort of halfway down their legs and they just sort of come up and fart. That kind of those really short, snappy kind of videos that last a few seconds. I'm not a big fan of the whole farting on command. Um, I mean, I like face farting, so any videos where it's someone farting in someone's face, I like that. But then it's quite nice stumbling across the videos on YouTube where they're not content creators, it's just a video. Someone uploaded a video of someone, their friend farting or them farting. It's the kind of the more natural side of it.
Absolutely. No, that makes absolutely a lot of sense. Would you say you have any other kinks or fetishes that you whether relate them to fart fetish or don't? Like, is there any other interests you have, whether they be connected or not?
I don't really know actually. It's not something I've really thought about. I've come so wrapped up in the world of Eproctophilia and all that I've not really had the time even stop to think about other things that I might be interested in. I think it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's nowhere near taken over my life, but in terms of that side of things, it kind of has, to the point where if I do meet up with a guy or go on a date or something, I'm always thinking about them farting at some point. When like, it's sort of, I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say it's taken over my life, but it's certainly I've very much become wrapped up in that world where I'm always thinking about it. So other fetishes is not something I've yet to consider, to be honest with you.
For sure. No, that makes sense. And it makes sense, it being kind of fresh into it, especially, a second like awakening or a second exploration, only within the last 5 years. I definitely understand. Um have have you had the opportunity or like the interest to thus far participate in any kind of fetish play with anyone in person?
Um, it was a slow burner to start off with. I mean, I think the first meetup I did was back at university in 2017. I was on this chat on Kick, and I just ended up stumbling across someone who lived in the same city that I was at uni with, and he said he was looking for someone in the area to kind of meet up with. We only ever did one meet. I think he came off Kick for not long after because of I think it was taking up storage on his phone, and he ended up going to another chat site. So we ended up losing contact. But that was the first meet I had, and then that was it to post COVID. And I've only ever done two since. I think because while I live in the UK, it's so isolated. I live in quite a rural countryside town, so it's not, other than getting the train up to London to meet someone, it's not been that easy because I've only been driving for 2 years. So I've not had even, it's not a case of I'll jump in the car and go and drive somewhere. That's not always been the option. So my opportunity to meet people have been quite limited up until now.
That makes sense. No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you wanna? Is there any of those? I guess three experiences that were most memorable to you. Anything you want to like share about them, or anything that you learned from them?
I think the first one, mainly because it was I think I always remember the first time of doing lots of things. I think it's kind of that natural human mind thing where the first time, I don't know, driving or doing this, we always remember it. So I think that first one, and also because I was doing it in my uni accommodation where you're with other people in the same building as you, it's where there's people on a room either side of you, it's that discreet kind of feeling about it where, someone would be farting non-stop and you'd worry about the person in the room next door hearing it and all that lot and wondering what the hell was going on. So I'd say that one's quite memorable. The others not so much, but I wouldn't say that was anything personal. I'm one of those people, I remember really random things, but I forget important things. Like I can remember what I did 10 years ago on my birthday, but if you asked me what I did last Tuesday, I'd completely forgotten.
I no, I share that. I actually share that type of memory as well. It was funny. I noted down that it sounds like almost the and maybe this wasn't a particular enjoyment, but I kind of picked up on it in my own reading, is the sort of taboo within the taboo. You're already doing a taboo activity of farting, and then being in this semi-private situation, you're like, this is a little more taboo than I wanted this already taboo thing
Yeah,
to
definitely.
be.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I think it's nervous because I want to be able to explore it a lot more, but it's like I mentioned earlier on, it's a part of my life that's so secret, and I intend on remaining it keeping it secret.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you find you enjoyed that I don't think the word is voyeuristic, but like that taboo within the taboo feeling, or was it just more nerve-wracking for yourself?
I think I think because I'd only just started university, so I hadn't really got to know the people I was living with, and all of a sudden I've got this person I've met on Kick in my room, exploring a fetish that I've had for a long, long time. But up until now, that was my first ever time exploring it with someone. So there's a lot of nervous, kind of like anxiousness attached to it, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
100%. Absolutely. Definitely.
Like I honestly feel like if the people I was sharing with, the room with, or the flat with at the time weren't in the building there and then, I would have been able to relax a lot more. But because I knew there was one person in the room on the left hand side and another person in the room on the right hand side, it was so I had to be really quiet and careful. And
Yeah. No, I 100% understand.
I remember his farts being really loud and the walls being really thin. So I was kind of worried about them hearing it.
No, absolutely. No, 100%. I definitely get the concern. I mean, even with someone who's just like quote unquote having sex loudly, like it's all can already be embarrassing. So I imagine
Yeah.
the constant I don't know if patter would be a word, but of farting constantly would be like, what is going on in there? Like what is happening? Are like on deflating balloons in there?
If I was just having sex with someone at that moment in time, I feel like that I would have been less anxious about it because it's a natural thing. Well, so is farting, but having sex with someone is more natural to most people than wanting to sniff someone's farts, so that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, societally natural. Absolutely. I totally agree. Do you feel that was like the first or the closest you felt to like fully immersing yourself in a sexual expression that felt like it was your own? Or was there a
Yeah, because
subsequent one?
up until then, it just been watching videos on YouTube or having friends farting around you, but then you're not able to express yourself then because they're just your friends farting. They haven't got that fetish. They aren't doing it for you to sniff. That they're not there to engage with you on that level. So yeah, definitely.
That's us. That makes sense. I understand what you're saying there. What do you feel like has helped you grow maybe the most in terms of both your fetish and sexuality?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. I've not really thought about that. Yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Sure, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a interesting question about in general, like what like we don't necessarily have a way to pinpoint a single thing as we kind of go through our existence. It may be it's hard to say like it was this or it was that. Maybe other people can do that, but I think even for myself I'd be like I don't know. I don't have an exact like this thing. This thing
I
did
feel like
it.
when you're in your 20s, though, you're still discovering yourself. And I think
True.
the past 4 years of COVID and being in lockdown and all that lot, it's been difficult to explore yourself a bit more and find yourself because you can't really do that when you're sat indoors watching, staring at four walls, watching the same TV series over and over again for something to do. But so I feel like if that hadn't happened, I'd have been more. The last 4 years have been more an opportunity to explore myself rather than what actually happened.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right there. It is true. The ability to have the freedom to get out there and explore, whether it be being old enough, having transportation, having money to do things, whatever. It is a barrier in the world in a way that it may not have been in previous generations or like previous eras.
Yeah, and sort of like I said, because of where I live in the UK, it's not easy to meet up with people, especially sort of because I'd only passed my driving test in 2021. So up until then, I was relying on people coming down to me or trains, which for 16, 17 months was pretty much non-existent.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, especially being isolated in a place that doesn't have that access, or regular or consistent access would be troublesome. Do you remember a like the first person or memorable person in your lifetime that, whether they be real or fictional, that you recall like feeling attracted to?
I've only really thought about this in recent. There's a guy at school who I used to go to the gym with quite a bit. We're going off a bit of a tangent here. I used to go to this. My dad used to be a member of this gym down the road from me, and I used to go there swimming. And I remember being in the changing room once, coming out of the. Like I just finished swimming, and my friend who I went to school with walked in, and it was awesome. We kind of bumped into each other and got chatting. And then it was a few days later at school, he said, "Oh, do you want to start going to the gym with me?" And I used to make a point of wanting to free up every Saturday morning to go to the gym with him. And obviously back then I hadn't come out, I hadn't really thought about my sexuality. So I just saw it as an opportunity to socialize with my friend from school on a Saturday. But I suppose in the last year or so, I've thought lot more about it, and I've probably come to the realization that I did actually have a crush on him, but I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That's very interesting.
So at the time, I wasn't actually living where I'm living now. I was living in this remote village in the middle of nowhere with no access. It had literally had 1, 2 buses a day into the main sort of town centre. So growing up, I never had the opportunity to socialize with a lot of people outside of school because there just wasn't transport access. So I just kind of saw this as maybe at the time saw it as an opportunity to have that regular social interaction with a friend from school. But looking back on it, it's probably a bit more than that.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I totally get it. And you gave me a great answer to a question I was just trying out. I wasn't expecting something so personal and like thoughtful. So I really appreciate that. That's very very cool. Thank you. Um what what if any role do you feel like, I guess, whether it be pornography or just farting content that wasn't pornographic, has played in your sexual or fetish development?
Mm, mm, mm. I'm trying to think. Um, it's going to sound really vague, but I think just gut met guys in general. I generally feel like since coming out as gay, I've been more. I think just coming out as gay has changed my personality. So I feel like just my sexuality in general is the answer to that. If that makes any sense.
Uh yes, it does actually. I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, I personally, um it's gonna be wrong to say I'm a product of porn, but like I've definitely had most of my sexual experience or awakening come through pornographic material more so than connecting with romantic partners, as it were. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of the, um I don't know if there's more than two sides to this, but I think that is kind of the two sides of this. It's like whether you kind of grew up and most of your sexual development was through watching pornography and thus kind of getting a fantastical image of what sexuality should be, or if you have a more grounded, realistic sexual perspective, because you actually connected with people and got to know real people and their actual needs, I think is the two kind of coins of this question. So I do understand your response.
Yeah, and I think because I've become so wrapped up in this world of proctophilia and farts and that, I've not allowed myself to expose myself to other kind of types of pornography and all that lot, because I feel like it's got to the point where if it doesn't involve farts, I'm not that kind of interested.
Hmm.
I feel like if it wasn't, although I honestly believe that this fetish is a positive side to me, and I'm not, regardless of what people say, because some people, people do find it weird and all that lot. I feel like if I hadn't had it, if it didn't exist in my life, I would have been more exposed to other types of pornography and all that lot.
Yeah. No, that makes 100% sense. I feel very similarly, and in trying to expose myself to other types of enjoyment, it becomes clear. It's just like, this is for whether it be just acclimating it to it for many years, or it's just some kind of chemical inborn gene thing. This is the type of content you enjoy, and kind of anything else doesn't really have an interest. So I uh, definitely kind of understand that. Is there a part of your sexuality you feel like you don't understand, or your fetish, or anything like that?
I think it's not understanding why I enjoy it, if that makes sense. I've just always enjoyed it, but I've never really thought about why. And I'm not too sure I want to know. I'm happy having it.
I'm sorry, you said you're not sure you want to know.
Yeah, I feel like if I wasn't happy having it, I'd want to know why. But because it doesn't bother me, I just think, well, does it matter why?
Some people, yeah, I do think some people gravitate in that direction. I do think the why is maybe not a very answerable question anyways, so it maybe not worth spending a lot of time to. I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I can dial down why I think I maybe have a fetish, but not why I like it. Like if that makes sense. I could actually maybe explain more why I think I like domination. I wouldn't know if it's the reason, but it's somewhat more um uh explain. I don't know. It feels like it has an explanation more so than farting, other than to say, and this is just my perspective being on the domination side, is that it's just a further, or one of the most, if I like humiliation, degradation, domination, it is one of the most degrading acts that could be done. So I think that is some of the reasoning, but that still doesn't maybe say why I like that. Like why do I want that activity? So I think we could. It's kind of like when a kid asks questions, it's like you kind of pull this thread forever, and there's not. It's like, why do birds fly? It's like, well, you could talk about the mechanics of it. It's like, but why do they fly philosophically? I don't know. They want to. Uh, which brings us, I don't know if it brings us to, but I'm going to transition anyways. You started your own fart fetish podcast, which you've called Let's Talk Proctophilia this year.
Yeah.
Please talk to me about that. Why'd you want to start the show? What are your hopes, your expectations? What do you want the show to do?
Well, it was. I'm going to go completely off topic here, but I
Please.
come from a musical theatre background, and that's where my background lies. And there's lots of theatre blogs out there and YouTube channels where you people interview actors from West End and Broadway musicals. And a couple of years ago, I kind of got and that all. I think it all started during COVID, or maybe a bit before. Um, I got into that a couple of years ago, and I've got a channel on YouTube where I interview a lot of like West End actors and musical theatre performers, and then that kind of tailed out a bit through work and not having time to do it. And I wanted to get started back into it this year, but then I kind of thought, and in some ways I have, but part of me thought, well, there's so many of those podcasts out there. What can my podcast do that's not that's different to everyone else's? I can have a theatre blog where I review shows and I interview these actors and all that lot, but that's no different to the 10, 15 other theatre blogs out there. And then I stumbled across your part, you're the one you have for farts and that, and I thought, well, so, to the best of my knowledge, you're the only one so far, so it's still quite a niche topic for podcasting. Maybe I could give that a go. It's not necessarily one that will explode and become the next big thing, but it's getting me into some kind of podcasting on a topic that's still very taboo, if that makes sense. Whereas musical theatre and interviewing actors from West End and Broadway musicals, there's lots of those already out there. It's not niche anymore. It's not different. Some of these actors appear on the same 5, 6 different podcasts, and they're constantly being asked the same questions, maybe in a slightly different way. But how many times can you ask the leading actor from Les Mis how he got started in the industry?
For sure. For sure. I will say I do feel that way about this podcast sometimes, but I think it does just depend on um the level of energy you have and
Yeah,
the interest you have. Why what I mean, obviously having a fart fetish does put you in the vicinity of taboo. What made you sold on the idea of doing a taboo podcast, or leaning in that direction?
weird. I didn't put much thought or time into it. I just remember listening to yours and then going, "Oh, I want to do that," and I just started doing it. I set up a look. I kind of readjusted my Twitter page and found some random picture on um, Google, and then I had to think of a name, and I was like, I can't think of one. Like my theatre one is Stagey Dom because my name's Dominic, and then I love stagey stuff. So Stagey Dom was kind of the obvious choice for my theatre one. But I was like, oh, what do I do for this one that doesn't sound cheesy or rude? Or so I've not really thought. I was kind of a bit like a bull in a china shop in a way, which is actually one of my kind of not weaknesses, but one of my kind of negative side of I am a bit like a bull in a china shop. If I want to do something, rather than spending time thinking about it and making sure I do it properly, I kind of just go in and do it. And I think that was the same with this podcast.
That's great. I wouldn't call that a negative. I mean, there's certainly sure
Yeah.
negatives to it, but I think um one of the things many people do in this world, I'm not phrasing this properly, but one of the things, people have a lot of ability to talk about what they want to do, and not do it. So I think having the initiative to just do it, even if you're not ready, quote unquote, or you're not prepared, or you don't have all the research done or whatever. I mean, that's how this podcast started. The first episode of this podcast was me just sitting down and starting it. I think the second episode might be that as well. It was really until the, when Damien came on, this show started to get a little more, and then just from there, I'm really like, okay, I want, these guests to not, I want them to sound good, as best I can do, anyways. I want the show to have a little bit production value, um, and now I'm kind of backing that up because I feel like there's maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to recapture the authenticity, so I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, I might remove the theme song, this and that, but it doesn't matter. But the point is, like, yeah, I think just starting it, just doing it, I think can be a positive for sure. So I give you kudos on that, and I'm happy to that, just listening gave you um what, I don't know, the push, the drive, whatever it was to go forward. So very cool. um that's awesome. uh who do you have further ideas about what the show, um like, who you want to talk to? Is there a segment of people you want to talk to? Like, what's kind of, do you have a plan, or are you working on it?
No, I feel like I was trying right now. I want to see where it goes. I've done 2 episodes so far, um, and I'm lucky that one of those, and they're kind of two people based in the UK. But I want to kind of just see, I think, just see where it goes and play it by ear. If that makes sense. I
Certainly.
probably should have more of a plan, but I feel like I just want to just see where it goes, and if it goes anywhere, great. If it doesn't, fine.
No, for sure. And a plan can always come later. Like, if you're interested, if you remain interested and you like it,
Yeah,
I think where you put your mind will automatically start coming up with ideas. I hope. But I mean, I find it to be that way. So yeah, I wish you the best going forward with that. You kind of talked about this, and it kind of ties into the podcast as well. I'm assuming, very public in kind of the, or somewhat public in the fetish community. Would you say you're then private in otherwise your personal life, or how do you navigate that dichotomy?
weirdly, I'm quite a private person. I've always been that, and I think that stems from live because of where I lived when I was little and not having much access to social interactions outside of school. I've kind of always grown up being a private person. I've kind of kept my pool of people around me quite small, and a lot of that is through choice. You know, I've had the opportunity to go out and socially go to parties and that lot, but it's never really been my thing. So I've been quite a private person through choice. I've changed a lot in the last few years and that's all thanks to the two jobs that I've had that have allowed me to be a bit more open in that. But yeah, being a private, I would say it's a bit of my personal life. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But it's weird because when I was little, I literally barely talked. I wasn't really one for talking, and now I can talk for Britain.
Interesting. What drew you to want to do the podcast starting on the like West End actors and then, you know, subsequently this one, you know, in contrast to what you're saying about your more private desires?
So, like I said, I kind of trained in musical theatre, but I didn't go to like a big top show busy drama school. I went to university, and kind of here in the UK, that's a bit of like a taboo. So when once kind of graduating and going straight into lockdown, I was a bit lost, and I kind of listened to a lot of listened to a lot of the podcasts and that on Twitter, on YouTube and Spotify, and I thought I want to give that a go because I want a visible presence in this industry that hopefully could lead to further opportunities, and also it's a networking opportunity. If you want to be an actor and you get chatting to actors and creatives, you never know where it's going to lead. So I think that's where a lot of it stems from, was networking.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you're talking to another actor here, so I definitely understand. I definitely understand what you're saying. I my goals are pretty similar myself for as long as I've been doing this. So I definitely get it. I definitely understand. And when I say this, I don't mean just the podcast, but the live streaming I still do, and the, you know, the acting, I guess, where I can fit it in if I can ever land a job, you know, auditioning sometimes, getting them from the agents, but not
Yeah,
getting the job. It's, you know, it's a never ending kind of I guess grind, but at the same time, like a very boring and demoralizing grind at
yeah.
the same time. But yes,
But funny enough,
yeah.
I got my Les Mis audition through interviewing someone. It's an interview that never went out in the end because all the footage disappeared. I had an issue with my laptop, but I got an interview with the casting director for Les Mis
Mhm.
in the West End, and he kind of gave me an opportunity.
Oh, awesome.
So got my Les Mis audition because we did the interview and all that lot, and then once we finished the interview, we just carried on chatting. And he said, "So, would you like to be in Les Mis? Is that something you'd want to do?" And I said, "Well, I've got the opportunity." And then he said, "Well, could I have your email for your agent?" I said, "Yeah." So I dropped it over to him, and then about 6 months later, I got an audition for Les Mis, and it all stems from that.
Congrats. Nice. That's awesome. That's very awesome. I'm glad to hear that you've I mean, it's not the fire fetish podcast, but I'm glad you've experienced growth in these or growth. You've experienced networking opportunities that have panned out in doing these projects. That's very cool. Congrats. Um what do you feel like you appreciate the most about your sexual journey so far, or your fetish journey, as it were?
I think I appreciate this allowed me to be me, and it's allowed me to find myself and be a bit more open rather than being this sort of shy, timid 10-year-old. It's allowed me to be more open and a different person, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, that does make sense. Do you feel like you have like one thing that you value most or enjoy about your fetish or your sexuality?
I think it's the fact that it's given me something that's makes me slightly different than maybe most people, but having a side of me that not many people know,
Sure.
as in that no one knows. I've got this side that no one would know. No, I was because of for various different reasons, I've always said it's a side of me that no one will know about for as long as I'm alive, which touch wood is many, many years. um, but yeah, so I've kind of, that's what I like about it. It's a side of me that no one knows about, but it's there.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I can't say I share that. I mean, obviously I'm in some ways trying to be not recognized, I guess, but seen, I guess, or have it be part
Yeah.
of my repertoire, as it were. But I can empathize or understand where you're coming from as well. So it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. I think that's generally most people's, not necessarily the thing they value most, but I think they do or lean towards the wanting it to be maintained as like a secret or a small thing, or not widely known about a person. I think mainly, if I had to guess, is because I think a lot of people think that it would change how people perceive them, whether it be professionally or personally.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm scared about, is telling someone then their opinion changes.
Sure, and you can't control it either.
Yeah, I think I've spent so long building my network of people that I can talk to and socialize with that I'm kind of scared that I'm very keen on clinging on to them and not doing anything or saying anything that might make one of them disappear off into the stratosphere
Absolutely.
somewhere.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like it's almost better if they tell us. Sometimes I think in those situations, they just like drop off and stop talking to us at all. And then we're like, uh-oh, like what happened? Instead of like having the finality of like, oh, I know at least what's wrong with this person. I can heal, I can move past it. Like, oh, they can't accept me, let me move past it. When people don't give us that closure, we're often stuck, like wondering, what to do. So to want to avoid that entirely by not, making it widely known our fetishes makes sense. Do you feel like you have an opinion on like fetish or sexuality that um is outdated? Like you used to hold it, but you don't do anymore?
No, I like to think I'm quite open. I mean, I never used to think a lot about non-binary and all that lot, but at last I came out as non-binary. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't say any of my opinions are outdated. I mean, I do make jokes because I do a bit of stand-up comedy on the side. I do make a lot of jokes about sexuality and things like that, but not in like a harmful like they're not my opinions, they're just jokes.
For sure. For sure. Have you are you attempting, or have you found a way to incorporate fart fetish, or at least pillow it in between other things into your stand-up comedy?
It's something I'm working on. It's just about trying to find the right jokes. But yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. That's very cool. I look
I
forward to.
certainly put a lot of my sexuality into it. Like I don't play but my onstage persona is gay.
Ah,
Like that is my onstage persona. My alter ego, Ivor Harvey, is gay. I'm basically just myself on stage. But
that's very cool. That's very cool. I love that. I love that a lot. This has been a lot of fun talking with you, sharing with you. I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of Let's Talk Proctophilia. I have just one more question, but is there anything else you'd like to add or ask just mention or anything else at this point?
I don't know really. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, for sure. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. I
Yeah, of
want to
course.
I want to conclude with, what are your thoughts on the future of this fetish, whether it be just for yourself, the fetish at large, or if you could speak to both.
I think the fetish has got a long way to. It's got a long way to go. I feel like it's still very taboo. I do think it's probably less taboo than it was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, there was a woman on one of our British like daytime talk shows who did a whole interview about how the fact that she sells, she makes money through selling her farts. So clearly people are very maybe more open about going on platforms and talking about it. She's clearly very comfortable talking about it if she's going on a international TV show.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's not what it was many moons ago, but I think we've become more of a community, if that makes sense. We've become less just of a fetish and more of a group of people networking and socializing, and people become friends out of it. And I don't know if it exists for many other fetishes.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting note. I guess that is true. I was thinking about that as well. I was thinking, even as you were speaking about, like, is that a thing to expect, like fetishes to become communities? And I think generally the answer is no. So I don't, this is not me speaking out of expertise, but just a feeling. Um but
I know I don't see much of it because I know a lot of people have like foot fetishes,
sure.
and I can't see that being a massive community. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I don't have the fetish, so I'm not too sure. But I certainly think ours has become a big community. Like, you've got endless amounts of group chats on Telegram and on social media, and then you've got lots of people being very open on Twitter about it. Some do hide their like their faces and all that lot, but there are others out there that are very happy to show themselves. And there's always that minor risk that videos can get leaked and the wrong person sees it. It has happened. I know it's happened. I've heard stories of people who've put their stuff on social media, they've shown their faces, and then the videos have been leaked to the point where their own friends have seen it.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a horror story for sure. Um I yeah, it is again, it is me being, again, because I've done pornography with my face in it, fart pornography, so I'm not as like, they're gonna find out.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like, if you didn't want that, what like I say, what a horror story, what a like
I think the guy that
yeah,
you interviewed recently, Wizard of Fartbane, I think that was him.
right.
I think some of his content has been recently leaked, and some of his friends have seen it. So he's had to change all of his persona, like his approach to how he goes things about things on Twitter.
Jesus, what a I'm sorry to hear that. Um that is a shame. I'm very hopefully that doesn't lead to any further damage for him or anyone else. Um geez. Do you have any like thoughts about your your future within this fetish? You talked a lot about the community in general. What do you think your um whether place within the community, your growth outside of the community, what do you think that looks like?
I feel like I'm still at the stage where I'm finding my place, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I'm not at the point where I can pinpoint anything. I'm just still trying to find my thing, my place, my little. It's one big jigsaw puzzle, and I'm trying to find my little piece where I can slot in and be a part of that final picture.
I get that. I get that. You're kind of throwing paint at a different couple of different canvases and seeing what sticks,
Yeah,
what looks good, what works. I like that a lot. I like that note to end us on. Dominic, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and talking to us. Again, I wish you the best with Let's Talk Proctophilia. And yeah, let's do this again soon.
amazing. Thank you for having me. Thank
Of
you.
course, my pleasure.